previously said last week, and rather unfortunately, Jimmy Carter 100 and counting.
Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
And this is the season premiere, Charlie, of C&C Talks Season 4. So, Episode 1, Season 4.
Episode
We're back for another
99.
year. Let's get into it.
Yeah, episode 99 overall. It's crazy that next week is episode 100. Well, if we record next week, which we should. We'll get to more of that in our Season 4 preview. Just a reminder, we release episodes every week, and we talk about politics, world events, and sports. As of taping, it's Monday, January 6th, 2024, at about 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. So let's get into our season preview, shall we? We're hoping to release at least 30 episodes this year. That's usually our goal. We fell a little bit short this past year.
No, we got to 30 this year. Our goal last year was 40. We got to 30.
Okay, so we've narrowed our expectations then.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, our episodes are out most weeks, as we said, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else you get your podcasts, and are also available on our website, cctalks.com.
And Charlie, you mentioned next week is going to be our 100th episode. Our plan right now, things might change, but our plan right now is to do a run of shows every single week from now through the Super Bowl. We'll probably take maybe a break after that, but for now we're planning on starting with at least 6 straight weeks of shows.
Yeah, I mean, we have winter break after that, I think, and I don't know if I'm going to be in town.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. Episodes release usually middle of the week, but always 8 p.m. Pacific time. And
PM?
AM.
There you go.
Okay, yep. We're getting we're knocking the rust off early after not recording for like 2 months and then recording our year in review episode, which had some unfortunate timing in some regards, which we'll get to
that
later in the episode.
Yeah.
This season will also probably have several bonus episodes that could include interviews or deep dives into a specific topic or event. We'll see. Just a little sneak peek. We might have something going on later this week. We'll also be doing our usual live streams for big events. Usually these can serve as a rapid response to an event like the Super Bowl. We did a Super Bowl live stream last year. The dates and events, we don't know when things are going to happen necessarily. So those will become more evident as we get closer to when those are actually going to happen. And you can join our Discord, cctalks.com/Discord. You can interact with us and the entire C&C Talks team and get notified on new content from us. If you're not watching on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, notifications sometimes can be unreliable or they just don't happen. So if you want to keep up to date with all the stuff we're doing, I suggest potentially joining our Discord. You can also follow us on Twitter at CC Talks Podcast. You get commentary entirely from Colin on politics, sports, and many other things. You have a problem. You should stop uploading so much.
How many tweets are we up to? And by we, I mean mostly me. There's been
16,000.
There's been some that have not been me, but it's mostly me.
16,000. In that span, I started my account 3 days after you, and I have 510.
Okay. So yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, we're also looking to expand our presence on social media, potentially onto sites such as Instagram and Blue Sky, and more coming soon. We'll have more on those when we actually start doing stuff on those, which we haven't yet. And in terms of episode clips, we did some of those last year. We did quite a few in season 2. Those are coming back in a slightly different format. If you have seen our channel before, we did our welcome to kind of like a recap, very short, welcome to 2025, goodbye to 2024 video that we actually used clips from other things, which we may do again. We're hoping to do again. We'll see.
Yeah.
Colin, do you have an update on C&C 5? Because that's kind of your thing whenever you do it, which is like once a year.
Yeah, it'll happen occasionally this year. Right? Keyword is occasionally.
Yeah, until you do it, I'm not buying it.
Sure. I mean, the other thing that you have to realize here when we talk about what we are and are not going to do is that, guys, we make no money off this podcast, essentially. That's
not entirely true.
Yeah, we make almost no money. This is purely a passion project for the most part, and
I'm
that
convinced.
means
No,
that
I'm convinced that Morris has been laundering all the funds we've been making.
maybe, but it's purely a passion project, which means that sometimes, unfortunately, as much as we love doing this, there are other things in our very busy lives that we do
Like
have to
college
put
stuff.
ahead of this. So we try to put out as much content as we can. We try to put as much time and effort into that content as we can, but sometimes other stuff does get in the way.
Yeah, and going back to after hours. After hours is back.
We
We'll
think.
be doing we think probably. Um, yeah, so we should be doing some more history-based content. I have also been doing over the last 6 months my own little adventure on my own personal channel, Slideshow Sports. Little self-promotion there, which is purely a sports-based thing, which we've maybe been thinking moving over to after hours as well. We'll see where that goes. Those are on YouTube Shorts and are hosted by me, which we'll see where that goes. In terms of
Yeah,
asking us questions, ask us questions on Discord and Twitter, as we no longer have a phone line. Colin,
yeah.
what happened with that?
So what we've realized is that for about the last 6 months, we actually haven't had a phone line, so we've been promoting it, and it hasn't existed, which is a choice. um, but
Yep,
yeah,
because no one told us. Thanks, admin.
don't call the phone line. It doesn't exist. Call if you want to ask us questions, and we really would love you to ask us questions. We'd love to answer any questions that we can get for the show. Uh, but reach out to us on Discord, reach out to us on Twitter, maybe on other social media coming soon. Again, we haven't fully fleshed out our season 4 plans because we just ended season 3 a bit later than we had originally planned on. But we'll have more information on all of this coming soon.
Yes, we will. And after that very, very drawn out intro, let's get into it. Today, as of recording, this is January 6th, a very significant day in American history, as it is 4 years ago to the day since the insurrection at the Capitol, and while Congress was attempting to certify the election victory of Joe Biden. Colin, what are your thoughts just looking back on this event 4 years later?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? I haven't fully gone back and listened to if we talked about this a ton on the 3 year or 2 year anniversary. 4 year anniversary just feels different because 4 years to the day later, what's happening at the Capitol on January 6th? We're certifying the results of yet another free and fair election. Just like the election in 2020 was free and fair, the 2024 election was free and fair, no matter what you think about the candidate who won, which this year was Donald Trump. He won legitimately. And it's interesting, right? Because what happened 4 years ago today should have been a deal breaker for that candidate. Today, 4 years later, we certified the results of the election that was won by the person that incited the insurrection back on January 6th, 2021. And since then, I think that this is the important point is that maybe it already has been rewritten, the history of that day. And like we cannot allow it to be rewritten. And I do think it has, at least for a lot of people, right? Or at least it's been made out to be less of a big deal as it was. Right? Because there's some people that are like, well, none of that happened, but then there was other people that are like, yeah, well, I can excuse that because it's just not that big of a deal. I'm voting for the price because of the price of eggs or whatever, right? And I think it's important to remember that this was, Charlie, I think you'd agree with me on this, the biggest attack on American democracy since the Civil War.
Uh, yes, I would agree.
And
Uh,
and carried out by, at least the biggest attack from within, because it was from,
oh yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I had assumed that that's what you were where you were going with this.
yeah, the other thing would have been like 9/11, Pearl Harbor, whatever. Like that's different, right? It's carried out by a foreign enemy. This was from people within the United States, people that have, some of them have faced justice for it. So a lot of those people we think are going to now be pardoned in about 2 weeks. And some of those people, such as Donald Trump, have not faced justice for it, as evidenced by the fact that they're now going to be sworn in as president of the United States. And I mean, I look at other countries. We saw what happened in Brazil when Bolsonaro tried to do something similar. He was, I don't know if was he arrested? I'm not sure. He was definitely barred from holding office. Again, we saw what just happened in South Korea when the president there tried to institute martial law. And so it's just right. Why could we not have accountability here in the United States for a day like this? And also, if you look at some of the biggest deniers of the truth, right, this is getting back to the point of not letting the history of the day be rewritten. It's people like Marco Rubio, people like Lindsey Graham, a ton of Republicans in the Senate and in the House, and you know that they don't believe any of what they're trying to tell you now about what happened on that day because you can go back and you can look at what they said on the day, what they said on Twitter, what they said on TV. You can look at the images of them hiding in the House chamber that was shown by the January 6th committee. You can hear some of the speeches that they gave on the House floor in the days after, especially during the effort to impeach Donald Trump. There were not people excusing what happened. And I think honestly, about the week or so after January 6th, as horrifying as the day was, there was a certain level of like calmness from me. Like it's going to get better from here. And because you have a new president sworn in, or that's going to be sworn in, that's going to actually care about democracy, it seems like you finally have both sides coming together to say enough of this nonsense. And then, what? A month later, the denialism started, and for, I didn't see that coming. Maybe I should have seen that coming, but it's pretty amazing how we got from where we were 4 years ago today to where we are today.
Yeah, just some of my thoughts on it. This, the fact that some people still claim that this didn't happen or it was like planned from the inside, I think it is frankly ridiculous. And I think the significance of the person who allowed this to happen 4 years later being confirmed as the president of the United States and confirmed by the person who he beat, I think
Yes,
has some profound symbolism to where we've been in as a country in this last 4 years, where we are now, and potentially where we may go in the future.
Charlie, you bring up an interesting point because, um, you're right. Kamala Harris was standing on the top of the dais, certifying the results of the election that she lost in her role as Vice President of the United States, as every vice president has done, as Mike Pence did, even despite the immense pressure from his boss at the time to do something different, something that he could not constitutionally do 4 years ago. And Charlie, I've been thinking about what if Kamala Harris had gotten up on the dais today and said that the electoral college votes were illegitimate and sent them back to the states. What would the response be from the right?
Oh
What
well,
would
there would be outrage. I think not just from the right, but I think
Yeah,
from all sides of the aisle.
yeah,
Because something like that is a critical blow to our democracy and would be one of the worst political events to happen in the history of this country.
correct. And the other thing is, um, the counting today took 30 minutes. It took over 14 hours 4 years ago. And first of all, the part of that's because it wasn't interrupted by an angry mob of people storming the building. But the other reason, and is that Democrats didn't object because when Democrats lose an election, as difficult as it is to lose an election, they admit that they lost the election and they move on. And that's what's supposed to happen in a democracy. That's what's happened in our democracy for over 200 years. And we now have a movement of people that would not do that. If Donald Trump had lost this election again, I don't know if we'd see quite the same level of like physical attack on the Capitol, but certainly there would be many objections. There'd be efforts to overturn the results of the election. We did not see that from Kamala Harris because she actually cares about democracy and she uh, is capable of admitting her own defeat.
Yep. Let's move on to Mike Johnson, shall we? Mike Johnson is elected Speaker of the House after initially looking like he wasn't gonna get it. I saw when I woke up on Friday, I saw that CNN was reporting that he hadn't gotten there, but I found out later that he did. So what exactly happened with that?
Yeah, it's an interesting scene on the House floor. So the first vote, and again, right, how this works for electing a speaker is that you need a majority, an outright majority, so 50% plus one of all the members voting. And you can vote for whoever. So just if you have the most votes, that doesn't do it. You need 50% plus one, right? And so what we have right now is a 220 to 215 House Republican majority, except Matt Gaetz not serving in this Congress, thank God. And as, by the way, was noted on the floor by bipartisan applause when the clerk announced that he would not be taking his seat to start this Congress. Bipartisan applause for that. But so there were 219 Republicans, 215 Democrats. You need 218 votes to get the speakership, which essentially meant Mike Johnson could only afford to lose one vote. And the first ballot, he appeared to have lost 3 Republicans on that ballot. Again, if no speaker's elected, we saw this 2 years ago. It just goes on to another ballot and so on until they elect a speaker. So he was 3 votes short, but they held the vote open for a while, and Johnson was seen negotiating with some people. It seems that maybe Donald Trump put in a call to ask them to change their votes. And eventually, right before they were about to close the vote, the 2 of the 3 went up to the dais and changed their votes. So Mike Johnson was given the speakership. He'll serve another term as speaker in a Republican-controlled House. Republicans now also officially control the United States Senate, and John Thune. Not Mitch McConnell, who's stepped down from leadership. John Thune is the Republican Senate Majority Leader.
All right, so that situation's being solved, as hopefully this Congress can actually, do things, which is what
Yeah, I mean,
the previous Congress.
maybe that would be a good thing. Depends on what they're planning on doing.
Well, we shall see. Former President Jimmy Carter died at 100 after we previously said last week, and rather unfortunately, Jimmy Carter 100 and counting.
Yeah, I posted this on Twitter when we were editing the episode last week. We during the year in review, yeah, like Charlie said, we mentioned 100 years old and counting with Jimmy Carter. That became an untrue statement before we published the episode, as Jimmy Carter dead at 100 years old after being in hospice for, I want to say, 22 months. And Charlie, we kind of discussed this around his 100th birthday, but what a life.
Yeah, absolutely.
What an unbelievable life of just dedication to service. Whatever you think of him as president, and I think his presidency is generally viewed in a negative light. I think there should be a real conversation about why. But regardless, even if you think he was a bad president, the greatest by miles at being a former president.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is anybody else, any other former president, going to be building houses for those in need with his own hands?
Nope.
Just
No, I
an
don't think so.
incredible person who led an incredible life. And Charlie, other bit of trivia for you here. Jimmy Carter was the first U.S. president to be born in a hospital.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, shall we talk about Musk, shall we? And
I was really hoping
after
we could not go there.
after helping Trump and really making a big shift in the American political landscape, Elon Musk turns his sights to Britain. Keir
Yeah.
Starmer's government already not great in the approval rating, but Musk has now thrown his full support behind the opposition movement in Britain, particularly the far right,
The
hoping to
Reform
see
Party.
if he could bring down Starmer's government. Anything
Yeah.
you want to add, Colin?
Yeah, right. He's thrown his support behind the Reform Party, which is the party that Nigel Farage leads. This is the furthest right party in the UK government. Now, notably, he does not think that Nigel Farage is the right person to lead the Reform Party, which I guess what he's suggesting then is that the Reform Party needs reform. But, Charlie, this is dangerous for one reason that I think we're not talking about, which is that Elon Musk is about to be a United States government official.
Yep.
A fairly high-ranking United States government official, we think, right? He's going to have, if not a lot of individual power, at the very least a lot of influence. And what he's said is that the King of England should dissolve Parliament and call a general election. Because the British people aren't going to stand for it. So, a couple points on this, Charlie. First of all, I think the king technically can do that. Explain why the king should not do that.
Because blowing up your own government is probably not very good for stability.
I think that if the king just unilaterally did that in what's supposed to be a ceremonial role, I think that might end the monarchy.
It would. Absolutely.
Yeah. So then the other thing is, he's crying about an election that, sorry, the Labor just won what, 6 months ago? Okay, can we demand a general election in the U.S. once uh, if Trump is his approval ratings are underwater in 6 months? Can we just do that and you'll grant us one? I mean, I get the systems are different, but still. And then the other thing is, Charlie, Elon Musk said today that America should liberate the people of Britain from their tyrannical government. That sounds to me a lot like him suggesting that the United States coup the British government.
That's exactly what it sounds like.
And that coming from someone that's about to be a US government official is extremely concerning.
Yes, it is.
Any other comments on this?
No, I think we've said what really my thoughts are on it. Let's get to Giuliani, shall we? He's been
Yeah,
held in contempt of court because he doesn't want to pay people because of course he doesn't.
yeah, this is going back to the defamation case that was brought against him by those Georgia election workers. He was ordered to pay, I want to say, $148 million.
Yeah,
He
that
doesn't,
sounds right.
yeah, he doesn't have that type of money, but he was ordered to turn over basically all of his assets, and he hasn't been doing that. So he's now being held in contempt of court. Here's the thing for me, though, right? This is in theory good. I'm at the point where I feel like I've been naive enough about accountability over the last few years. Right? We saw Trump get indicted 4 times. We saw him get convicted once. Nothing came of it. Um, Once some level of actual accountability has taken place, then I'll be happy about it. But we're not there yet.
No, we are not.
Charlie, big news out of
But, I mean,
Canada.
yes, we'll get to Canada in a second, but just I want to add, are we really surprised that he's trying to escape accountability? It just seems so much like a move that Rudy Giuliani would make. Because he's done it in the past and he's trying to do
Yeah,
it again. Yes, let's get to Canada, where Justin Trudeau is set to resign. Now, what has happened in Canada? Obviously, other than the US and Trump threatening to make them the 51st state.
yeah. Charlie, I just want to say I did not expect this at all.
No, neither did I.
Justin Trudeau to me does not seem like the type of person that is keen on giving up power.
No,
Now,
it doesn't.
I think he was going to be forced to next time there was an election, but for him to step down on his own, I'm frankly kind of amazed. I'm wondering if this is maybe because he doesn't want to deal with Trump.
Yep,
Like,
probably.
I don't actually know the reasons behind this.
Okay, but if he is to do that, then what? Now, what does Canada do now?
I I don't know. They find someone else. I don't the problem is I don't know enough about Canadian politics, right? I can
I
name.
don't know how their elections work.
Well, I think it's a similar parliamentary system to the UK, which would also just make sense if you consider Canada's relation to the UK.
Yep.
But like, I can name one Canadian politician, and his name is Justin Trudeau.
Yep.
So I'm guessing I'll be able to name a second soon because they're gonna have a new prime minister. He says he's gonna stay on right until the election of his successor, which I believe is the same thing Boris Johnson did.
Yeah, and that makes sense.
Yeah. Um, Charlie, tragedy in New Orleans on New
On
Year's
New Year's,
Eve, sort of. New Year's Day, early morning,
yeah,
on
I
Bourbon
believe
Street.
it was at 3:15 local time in New
Yeah,
Orleans, which would have been about 12:15 out here in on the West Coast.
1:15. New Orleans is Central Time.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
They are? Oh,
Charlie, Alabama's in Central Time.
yeah. I always forget where the border is between those
The
two.
Florida Panhandle is in Central Time.
Huh. Okay, I didn't realize it was that far
Yeah,
east. Okay, but that is definitely beyond the point.
yeah.
Tragedy in New Orleans, I believe 15 killed, 35 injured as a man drove his truck through a New Year's celebration. And the guy did have some ties to the Islamic State, I believe.
Yeah, well, I'm not entirely sure exactly how much is known on this. He definitely had an ISIS flag in his car.
In his truck.
Truck, yes, excuse me. But so it seems to be some ties there. The FBI originally said they did not believe he was acting alone, have since said that they think that he was acting alone. But either way, regardless of whether there's anything else that would come of that, a horrifying tragedy in New Orleans on Bourbon Street in the wee hours of the morning on New Year's Day, first few hours of 2025. And Charlie, there was another also, I believe, completely unrelated attack on,
In Vegas.
yeah, on Vegas. Someone blew up a Cybertruck outside the Trump Hotel.
Yeah, and we don't know if these two are connected. They very well could
I
be.
don't think they are though.
I don't think they are either, but a bad start to 2024 to 2025.
Yeah, I feel like though that picture of that Cybertruck on fire outside of the Trump Hotel, I feel like that's going to be used in a lot of memes this year when talking about the Trump administration. I feel like it has the potential to become a perfect photo to describe the administration. We'll see.
Well, yes, we shall. All right, it's time, I believe, for
It
stat of the
is.
week. We got two for you this week, and the big thing, I said at the end of last season, we are keeping score this year.
Yeah, I'm kind
Clean,
of scared. I think Charlie's going to win by a lot.
clean slate, 0-0. And in fact, to celebrate, I have two stats for you.
All right.
Which one do you want first? The harder one or the easier one?
Let's start easy, like right. Let's ramp our way up.
Okay. Well, this is actually the answer to a question you posed to me
Yeah,
earlier today. The Chiefs got shut out by the Broncos, basically because the Chiefs arrested everyone and didn't try.
yeah, everyone.
Yes. Kelsey wasn't playing, Mahomes wasn't playing. But the question is, this was the first Chiefs shutout in a long time. Who was their opponent? And actually, you get it right if you get either. One, who is their opponent? And two, when was it? I'll give you if you get either the opponent or the year, or both.
Okay, I don't think it was in the Patrick Mahomes era.
It was not.
I would guess it was in the Alex Smith era.
It was.
All right.
I
Don't
think.
I don't remember the exact years on that. I'm gonna go like 2016 to the Raiders, maybe.
You get the point because you got the team. It was 2012 against the Raiders,
Oh,
15-0.
it's been that long?
Yes. Yes, it has.
Wow. Okay then.
Actually, hang on, would that technically be 2013? Nope, December 16th, 2012.
Okay.
All right, and then the second one, and I really hope you don't get this one because I cannot have you go up 2-0 here.
That would be fun.
Obviously, Sunday is week 18, final week of the regular season. It's rivalry week. And I woke up Saturday morning to watch the Browns fail hopelessly to try to beat the Ravens again. And that
Yes.
made me wonder, When was the last time that the Browns won the season series against the Ravens?
So that would mean they'd have to sweep it 2-0.
They would have to sweep it 2-0. When, if ever, have they done that?
I don't think
When
they
was the
have
last time
ever
they did?
done.
They have. They've done it twice.
Okay, I'm gonna go then with I would say I'd have to say 2007, right? Because I know they came very close to making the playoffs that year. And because they've only made the playoffs like 3 times ever, and I know it wasn't in either of those
Twice.
last 2 times.
Twice ever. Right, 3 times. No, 2023, you're right. And you would be right. And he starts 2-0.
That's fun.
He starts 2-0. Yeah, they in the second game of the season they beat him in overtime 33-30.
Yeah. Okay, when was the the Browns have won games against the Ravens recently though? Yes?
Yes, they have.
Okay.
They had won two in a row going into this game this past weekend.
Oh,
By
they
the
won.
way,
Wait, was that snow game with that meme of Jameis Winston? Was that against the Ravens or was that against the Steelers?
I don't remember. But just to give you just a little extra stat here, the Ravens all time against the Browns are 37-15.
I mean, look, the Browns are not a good team.
No, and the Ravens
Like,
are a pretty good team, but I mean that's
yeah,
awful.
yeah. Um,
All right, well
Shirley,
we'll update the score, and I gotta step up my stat game for next week.
yeah, let's get into the our Week 18 recap. We'll go when talking about the NFL recap Week 18. We'll preview the first round of the playoffs. We'll then talk about the draft order, the coaches that have been fired, and then Charlie, we were kind of discussing this a couple days ago, but we have an interesting discussion on quarterbacks coming up in a few minutes.
Yes, we do. We've been talking about this for a little while. Yeah, let's get going with the Week 18 recap. Saturday, the the AFC North gets their
Yeah,
2 games. These were not. The first game was not very good. The
yeah. So
Ravens take care of
there was one fun highlight in that first game, right? And it was
it.
the
Was it Bailey
interception by
Zappi?
the big man, and I mean, a
Oh, no, the
big,
big man, the big man.
yeah.
Also, Bailey Zappi threw a pick six.
Shirley, I believe that's the Browns' 40th starting quarterback of all time.
Yeah, they're gonna run out of room on that jersey pretty soon.
Yeah, so
The big
look,
game,
they've been around since I want to say 98 or somewhere
99.
around then. That's more than one a season.
That's
Have
that's
like
quite a
that's
bit
not
more
good.
than one a season.
That's what?
That's quite a bit more than one
Yeah.
a season.
You want I feel like you want the number to be less than 1 per
You
year.
want the number to probably be less than 1/2.
Maybe because you will start backups occasionally because of injury or because you've clinched a playoff spot like the Chiefs did with
Oh
Carson
yeah,
Wentz.
that's fair.
Right.
That's fair.
Yeah. Um, but in terms of like starting the majority of your games in the season, like sure, uh, you want it to be less than 1, but like the Browns would have significantly fewer than 40 if that's the case. The other game, Charlie, Bengals Steelers. Um, I was giving the Steelers a decent amount of credit despite their losses in the past because they were faced with an extremely difficult schedule, right? It was the Eagles, the Ravens, and the Chiefs in 10 days, all within 10 days of each other.
Yep.
But now you had a bunch of rest. You're at home, you're playing a Bengals team. Look, I get that the Bengals team was hot. This felt like a game that they had to win, and they just couldn't do it. And Russell Wilson specifically on that final drive could not do it. That was ugly from him. So I really don't know what to make of this team at the moment, but I'm concerned.
Yeah, and you should be. And for the Bengals, bitter end on Sunday for them, but they do end the season with a win over Pittsburgh. Let's get to Sunday.
Well,
First
real
game,
real quick, Charlie, on the Bengals. For all the people,
Joe
their
Burrow
fans,
deserves better.
yeah, for all the people complaining about like how they didn't make the playoffs and
Well,
like
don't
how
lose
it,
to the Patriots.
yeah, don't lose to the Patriots. Well, but the other thing I'd say is that the Cincinnati Bengals would be such a good team if the month of September did not exist.
Oh yeah, no, they would be amazing if that didn't exist.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about them. I will say, Joe Burrow. I think we should later in the show get into the MVP debate, but
Oh,
Joe
we will
Burrow
do
is
that.
right there.
Yes, he is.
right? It is not his fault that his defense sucked.
He is, in my opinion, the most valuable player to his team. I am convinced that the Bengals would probably be a 2-15 team without him,
Yeah.
if that.
Yeah. Now, in fairness, he has of the MVP contenders, at least the quarterback MVP contenders, he has the best wide receiver duo of all of them.
Yeah,
However,
but he also put up the most points by
yeah, put up the
decent
best
amount.
numbers. Yeah.
All right, so let's get to Sunday. I'm going to run through these as fast as I can because not a lot of them ended up mattering. Bryce Young and the Panthers take out Michael Penix and the Falcons, eliminating the Falcons from the NFC South race. It didn't end up mattering because New Orleans lost in Tampa Bay. The Commanders take out the Cowboys in the second part of what was a very silly game earlier in the season. Disaster season for the Cowboys. They finished at 7-10. The Commanders then leapfrog the Packers, who decided to lose to the Bears. It's funny when that happens, but Commanders jump up to the 6th seed, Green Bay down to the 7th seed, meaning that Tampa will play Washington and Philly will play Green Bay. The Jaguars then lose to the Colts. Colts really hurt themselves by losing to the Giants last week. Speaking of teams who have the number 1 overall pick winning accidentally, Joe Milton outduels, I believe, Mitch Trubisky and Mike White to give the Patriots the win against the Bills in a game where Buffalo really particularly wasn't trying that hard, and I don't believe started very many of their starters. The Giants were taken out by Philly. No surprise there. Philly at home. They end the season 14-3, pick up the 2 seed in the NFC. The Texans take out the Titans, giving the Titans the number 1 overall pick in 2025. Question is, who will it be? We'll get to that later in our show. The Cardinals explode in the second half to take out the 49ers. The 49ers finished the season 6-11 after making the Super Bowl last year in what can only be described as a disaster season for them. And with them having to pay Brock Purdy coming up here, that team does not look like it's going to last very much longer. The Chiefs rested every single one of their players, put Carson Wentz out there, who dropped a donut as the Broncos lock up their playoff spot by beating the Chiefs 38-0. Broncos finished the season 7-10 while spending $85 million on Russell Wilson for him to not be on the team.
Yep.
The Seahawks take out the Rams in SoFi, the Rams B team, 30-25, with a hobbled Geno Smith throwing a touchdown pass to Noah Fant to win them the game. This really does hurt the Rams, though. Instead of being able to play Washington, they now have to play Minnesota in the first round. That game is at home, but the Rams have beaten the Vikings early in the season, but that should be a good game. Chargers get past the Raiders in what I don't believe had any playoff consequence. The Chargers were already locked in. Raiders are the Raiders. The Jets take out the Dolphins. Aaron Rodgers throws his 500th career touchdown pass. And to end the night, the battle for the NFC North, the Lions wasn't even close. They take out the Vikings 31-9. Vikings offense couldn't get going all game. The defense, which usually looks good, just got carved up by Jared Goff. And wow, that running game for Detroit with Montgomery out was mightily impressive. They take the 1 seed in the NFC, meaning that any NFC contenders, your road runs through Detroit.
Yeah, that's not a sentence I thought I'd hear. Let's quickly let me give some thoughts on some of these games. Start Panthers Falcons. Charlie, I've really liked what Bryce Young has done in the second half of this season. Right, a lot of doubters.
He has vastly improved.
Vastly improved. But you know who else looked really good despite the losing effort was Michael Penix Jr.
Absolutely. And I think that if he is able to stay healthy, which is a concern, I think he will end up being the best quarterback from this draft class.
Well, so it's interesting, right? Because we talked about all the concerns, right? I get that he didn't play a whole ton this year. He played, I think 3 games. However, This is now his 3rd straight season of being completely healthy all year. So that, to me, looks promising for him. The Cowboys, I don't know what the Cowboys do from here. They are not going to fire Mike McCarthy. Maybe the Bears will take him off their hands. But I just, I don't even know what went wrong for them this year. Commanders were impressive all year long. Jaden Daniels, to me, locked up Rookie of the Year. I think that's a done deal. Charlie, the Browns absolutely, I don't care about intentionally lose the game for the draft pick. When you're playing the Packers, your biggest rival who you haven't beaten 6 years, then
you go for it.
You go for it, and Go for it. They did. They tried so hard to screw this one up. It's
Yeah,
it's
it's the Bears. What
unbelievable.
do you expect them to do?
They, I don't know if you caught on the broadcast of this game, Daryl Johnston, the color analyst for Fox, so like something along the line, what are the Bears gonna do to blow this game this time? And then the next play, right, they fumble it.
Yep.
Uh, Ended up getting it back. I mean, credit to them. That's a gutsy win. Caleb Williams, to me, like I get, he has no offensive line, but he looks very promising to me, to be honest.
He does, and
Um,
if they can stop him from, if they can make sure that he doesn't get sacked into a billion pieces next season,
yeah,
I think the Bears might have a shot if they can figure out what an O-line is. John
yeah,
Snyder, take notes.
yeah. Texans, Titans, Colts, Jaguars. Really, no
Who
notes
cares?
on either of those
Who cares?
games. Patriots, what are you doing? Um, like just lose the game. I'm sorry, just lose the game. Eagles over the Giants. Charlie, we should have that Saquon Barkley discussion. Should he have played?
Yes.
Just because of the record.
Oh,
Because
yes.
here's the thing, though. Like, yes, I think he would have gotten the record, but what does that mean if he does play? Sure, it's not just him getting potentially getting injured heading into a playoff run. You got to not only start your entire starting offensive line. You've got to, it's meaning that it's going to be a very physical game up front.
Yeah, but that's a record you don't give up, especially against his former team.
No,
You
no,
gotta start him. You gotta let him
I
go.
get it, but here's the thing. Can you imagine what the media, especially in Philly, would be saying about Nick Sirianni if Barkley or someone important on that offensive gotten hurt? Can you imagine what they'd be saying about Barkley if it turns out that like, oh, it was Barkley's decision to start and he got injured, right? Everyone calling him selfish. I think that they
Okay,
made the
yes,
business
but Colin,
decision.
equally, if they lose to the Packers, which they very well could, and this entire thing is for nothing, then everyone's gonna say that he should have played.
Well, sure. I mean, no, I get the argument, and as a fan, I would have loved to see him play, right? As a neutral fan, but at the same time, I think you just do what the smart thing is. I think, like, I mean, credit to Barkley too for just being willing to put the team over him personally.
Yeah, that is really good
Yeah.
on him.
Buccaneers Saints, Charlie. It's a good game. That was an absolute dart from Baker Mayfield to Jalen McMillan.
Yes, it was, and I
Um,
will say I think instead of going over every game, I think I recapped it decently well. We should get to the playoffs because I think we've already been going for a little while here.
well, really
Get
quick,
to
do you
the
want to just
playoff
mention
Sunday,
that
get
the
the quarterback.
Mike
Yeah.
Evans, 1,000 yards. Charlie, is he a Hall of Famer?
I mean, he didn't get it by much, but I think so.
Yeah, and then with final comment here with the 49ers. Yes, they had injuries this year. I feel like injuries only tell part of the story though. I don't feel like McCaffrey being out for most of the year is the story of going from a Super Bowl team to 6-11. So I don't know what else there is, but there's something.
Yeah, and I don't think it's really that fixable either.
Yeah, especially right, you're gonna have to pay Purdy. Should you pay Purdy? Probably not, but you're gonna have to or find a different quarterback.
All right. Yeah, let's talk playoffs. So, Chiefs and Lions have the bye. Buffalo play who they play? They play Pittsburgh. No, they play the
No,
Chargers.
no, they play the Broncos.
They play the Broncos. I'm sorry. Yes. This one's not going to be close, is it?
Yes, let's go through let's just go through the wild card schedule to give our thoughts on the games. First game, Charlie, Chargers Texans on
This
Saturday.
one, this one could be good if CJ Stroud decides to play like he did last year.
Yeah, this is honestly, I think, one of the more underrated matchups of the
Yep.
first round.
And of course, it's the Texans in the playoffs. So Saturday at 3:30, because of course it is.
Yeah, no, this could, I think, actually be a very good football game, very competitive football game. Who are you going to take here?
I mean, based on what I've seen from these two, I think it make a lot of sense to go with the Chargers, and I think that's what I'm going to do here. Houston just has not looked themselves. They've thrown up some not good games in a not particularly good division. So give me the Chargers in this one, but I think it's going to be close.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close. I'll take A, the home field advantage, and B, the fact that Stroud did it last year in the wild card round, I think that matters too. I'm going to Texans. Steelers Ravens. Charlie, this is a game that we'd normally like just have
It's
circled.
on time.
Playoff matchup between two huge rivals, and yet it maybe doesn't feel quite as big this year because of just how good and how hot Baltimore has been compared to what we've seen from Pittsburgh the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think if you had asked me this question in like week 12, then I think my answer would have been different. But I mean, you got to say Baltimore.
I think that there are teams in this postseason that can stop the Ravens. I think there's many of them.
Teams.
I don't think that Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers are one of those teams. Let's go to Sunday, that 7-2 matchup. I just realized all the AFC games are before any of the games.
Yeah, it's weird. But yeah,
Denver Buffalo.
Broncos, again, there is one team, I think, in the AFC, sorry, that can stop Buffalo, and that team is not Denver.
Look, I love Bo Nix. I think what Bo Nix has done this year has been phenomenal, especially after a slow start. I definitely didn't believe in him. I am a firm believer in him now. I'm a believer in this Denver team long term, despite the teams that they're going up against in that division. With that being said, the Bills are a different animal, and especially in Buffalo in the month of January, come on, Bills.
All right, let's get to the NFC matchups then.
Packers, Eagles. Charlie, despite this being the 7-2 matchup, this might be the best
will be a close game, I think.
Yeah, no, it could be the best one.
This one I think is tough because Packers are good. Game is in Philly, though. That's going to be a tough game. The Eagles have not, I don't feel, have been particularly impressive this year.
I will say, though, they started 2-2, and I kind of ripped them. I was like, this team is lucky to be 2-2. But since then, despite they've won every game except when they didn't have Jalen Hurts. Is Hurts going to be playing this week?
I am not sure. So what I will say is, if he doesn't play, the Eagles are going to lose.
Yes.
And I think that is pretty evident. New York Post is saying that apparently his playoff status is in doubt. Yahoo Sports saying he's still in concussion protocol. USA Today is saying also doubtful. So
yeah.
I think.
So I mean, we both think that the Packers are going to win this game if Hurts is out. So let's assume that Hurts is playing.
If Hurts does play,
yeah,
he won't have played in a couple of weeks. I still think the Packers are gonna pull exactly what they did last year and stun the 2 seed.
Yeah, I think that if this game was at Lambeau, it would be different. But the Eagles, to me, they've been extremely impressive for the last 13 games of the season. So assuming that Hurts plays, I think they win this game. But it'll definitely be a good game. Let's talk about Washington.
Washington, Tampa.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is interesting to me because I think if Jaden Daniels does what he's been doing for most of the season, I think that the Commanders really have a chance. Baker Mayfield, though, equally could also just go off. I think it's going to be a great game between these two. But Buccaneers at home, Washington's a young team. I don't know if Washington's quite there yet as a team, but Tampa, I don't know if Tampa's defense can keep up with Washington. I'm going to have to take the Commanders.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, the Commanders have more wins this year too, is the thing. The games in Tampa. Here's the thing.
I think the Commanders also have stronger wins too than the Bucs do.
Well, but the Bucs. Here's the thing about the Bucs. They beat the Commanders week 1. We have 2 NFC playoff matchups that are rematches of week 1. Because Commanders, Buccaneers, and then also Packers, Eagles, and Brazil. We almost had 3. If the Vikings won, then it would have been Lions, Rams, who also played in week 1. So the NFC playoffs was almost all week 1 rematches. But
all right, who you got?
I mean, I look at Tampa Bay's schedule. This is going to be boring because I'm mostly going to be picking division winners here. But I mean, the Buccaneers have some really impressive wins. I feel like I'm analyzing this like I would college football. But to me, Baker Mayfield has shown that he can show up when the lights are the brightest, and I think the moment might just be too big for Jaden Daniels in his rookie year.
You're going to go with Tampa?
Yeah, gonna
All
go
right,
with
then that last game, Vikings-Rams.
the Vikings are winning this football game.
Rams have beaten the Vikings before. The game is in SoFi. They're going to have Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Kyron Williams.
It
The
being in
Vikings,
SoFi doesn't move me at all. The
the
Rams
Vikings,
crowd at SoFi is, even though it's a playoff game, it's going to be like a pro Vikings crowd.
the Vikings didn't look very good against the Lions. I think this Rams team matches up really well against Minnesota. Give me the Vikings by 20, and it's not even close.
Yeah, no, I'm basically right there with you. Right? Could look foolish. I don't think I will though.
Yep. All right. So that'll do it for our wild card preview. Should we
Yeah,
save the quarterback? Should we save the quarterback discussion to last week? We've already talked NFL quite a bit.
Yeah, we'll save the quarterback discussion until next week. Let's talk a couple coaches fired quickly. Gerard Mayo as
That's
well for the
surprise. I
Patriots.
think that happened because he lost the first overall pick.
Yeah, that might be true. And then Doug Peterson in Jacksonville. It was about time, right?
Yeah.
Peterson, he's shown that he can coach, right? He has a ring. It wasn't working in Jacksonville.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
but I mean, how much of that ring was him, and how much of that ring was Nick Foles' magic?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a mess. There are more teams. Right, we've been through this before. I am more pro firing the coach than a lot of people are.
Yes, you are.
However, like that, like there were Charlie. You should agree with me on this too. There were other coaches that should be out of a job today.
Yes, and Mike McCarthy is one of them.
And he might be if the Bears hire him. By the way, why are the Bears and the Jets not interviewing Ben Johnson?
Because they're the Bears and the Jets.
What I've heard is that the Bears want to interview Arthur Smith.
Also, I don't think the Lions' offensive coordinator is going to go to Chicago.
No, I don't think he might go to New York. I don't know.
Well, it would be a horrible career move for him.
Dan Campbell's going to do everything he can to keep him in Detroit, and frankly, I wouldn't want to go obviously I have nowhere near the qualifications to coach, but if I had a comfortable offensive coordinator job, I would not be looking to take a job in Chicago or New York.
No, neither would I.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk college football.
Yeah, let's start, Charlie. Let's recap
real quick. Teams on bye. What was that? The 12-team playoff format was a horrible decision that shouldn't have happened. And even if you say it should be 12 teams, then they shouldn't have seeded it the way they did, because that was awful.
I'm going to agree with you on the seeding. I think maybe I think a bye is a good thing, but not when you have a month off and everyone else has like a week and a half, right? So because at that point it becomes rust. I have been sold on the 12-team playoff, right? I've come around on it. However, they need to adjust some things with how the seeding works, with how home field works, all that. As for these games, I'm not sure if you can make that much of the rest, because 2 of them were pick'em games, and the other 2, the clear favorite was a team not on the bye. Now I think what was shocking is the way that some of these teams lost. Let's start, Charlie, with that Penn State Boise State game. Maybe it's just that they've had an easy path, but
Penn State was going to win that game. Genty didn't look that good.
No.
Penn State is just by far the better team, because if Ashton Genty isn't working, then Boise State isn't working.
So here's a question: do we call these big wins for James Franklin against Boise State and SMU?
No.
I'm not entirely sure. Really interested to see how he matches up against Notre Dame, because there's still, I think, that narrative on James Franklin. I have been really impressed with how this Penn State team looks. Charlie, let's talk the Peach Bowl, Texas, Arizona State. This was the game of the playoffs so far.
This absolutely was the game of the playoffs, and I think Arizona State really probably should have won this game.
There was the targeting. It's not clear that they would have won either way, but I mean, the other thing is, you gotta love Cam Scatterbo.
Yep, you do.
And why was he not a Heisman finalist?
Well, because he doesn't play two positions and he didn't run for 1 billion yards. That's why.
But I mean, but Cam Ward and Dylan Gabriel were finalists over him.
Yeah, because they're quarterbacks.
I guess.
All right.
Really, really impressive performance by him. But Texas ends up moving on. They did just enough, and they're the only SEC team left. We are going to wait until after the season to have the full-on SEC conversation that we need to have. But all I'll say is
Texas could still save the conference by winning.
Sure, but I don't think they can do that. They haven't looked good enough. Charlie, the Rose Bowl was an utter catastrophe.
As a Seattleite and a fan of the University of Washington, this was my favorite game that I've seen all season. Great job, Ducks. You made the playoffs. Go home. We'll see you next year.
Right. So here's the thing about this, right? Michigan, by beating Ohio State, completely screwed up the seeding because, to me, the best two teams in the country were facing this game, and
well, one of them certainly didn't look like the top two team in the country.
Well, sure, but I mean, at the same time, Oregon did beat Ohio State earlier this year. Ohio State is just
Colin, they were down 34-0.
No. I agree. Ohio State is just so good though. Like Jeremiah Smith, unbelievable. I've come around on Will Howard. Ibuka as a wide receiver, incredible. They've looked good on both lines. Ohio State's the team to beat, and like I picked them at the beginning of the playoff to win the championship.
I think you might be right. I think you might be right.
Yeah.
Colin, you have a rant?
No, real quick. Notre Dame, Georgia.
Oh yeah, that game was delayed due to the attacks in New Orleans. And actually, I didn't get a chance to watch this. All I know is that Notre Dame won.
Yeah, Georgia. So, right, here's the thing about Georgia this year is that, and Charlie, you probably noticed it, they never looked great. Like,
no, they didn't.
You could see flashes of potential greatness, but they never fully realized that. Like, the game against Kentucky, the game against UMass, the game against
Alabama.
Well, sure, but I was going to say, like, Georgia Tech, even Mississippi State, like, these are all games that they won, but these are all games where, like, they shouldn't have been in this situation. And I think that showed through. Also, huge win for Marcus Freeman, and confirms my thoughts that Brian Kelly, the LSU coach, should be fired, right? Because he left Notre Dame because he was like, there's not enough resources at Notre Dame to win a championship. I'm going to go to LSU, going to win a championship. He hasn't been to the playoffs. Marcus Freeman's now playoff games at Notre Dame, the school that he said he couldn't win at.
Yep. All right, let's get to your rant, Colin.
What was my rant on? Oh, Nick Kyrgios, right. Yeah, we're thinking about, and by the way, we'll do a college football season recap, a full recap next week of all the bowl games that happened, the non-playoff bowls. But I was thinking about potentially, like, you have the stat of the week. I was potentially thinking of doing Colin's rant of the week, but then I realized I do that like 5 times a week anyway. This is going to be on Nick Kyrgios, the Australian sort of tennis player. I say sort of because he doesn't actually play. He makes up excuses for why he shouldn't play. While, attacking 16-year-olds on Twitter, which is really what I'm going to be discussing. So Yannick Sinner, the world number one, yes, we know that he was found to have taken some sort of banned substance. There is a reasonable debate about whether more actions should have been enforced against him than what were enforced against him. That's a reasonable debate. We should all be having it. Nick Kyrgios, who, by the way, doesn't have a history of doing great things. He's not some good Samaritan, just looking out for the people. Pretty much confirmed domestic abuser. He decides to essentially make his entire personality attacking this guy. And you've essentially taken a situation that was fine, like it was a good discussion to have, and just made an utter mockery of it. And that concluded this week. Well, hopefully it's concluded. I don't think it's concluded. Where a 16-year-old, young, aspiring pro tennis player was doing a practice with Yannick Sinner. And he posts a photo of the two of them together on Twitter or Instagram or something, and Nick Kyrgios just starts attacking this dude in the comments for just hanging out with him. It's unbelievable. Needle emojis or suggesting he's doping, and then this is like, I thought we were bros or something like that. Charlie, Nick Kyrgios is 29. You know what's the rule on like the rule of seven or whatever it is in terms of dating age gap?
I don't exactly know.
But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Should that exist for friendship in a way too?
Yeah,
Are
absolutely.
you saying like you're a 29-year-old dude and I thought we were bros with a freaking 16-year-old?
Yeah,
What are we doing?
I
Is
don't.
that normal? That's not normal to me.
No, I
That's
agree.
that's creepy behavior. And at this point, congratulations, Nick Kyrgios. You've done the impossible. You've made me take the side of the player who failed a drug test.
Yep.
Great job.
All right. Let's real quick get to our. Oh, before we get to our 2025 predictions, Jimmy Butler's gone. Probably. We don't know where he's going, but he's not staying with the Heat. And then he got banned. Colin,
Yeah.
what's going on with that?
Well, I'll say this. Jimmy Butler's agent sure lost his feud with Shams.
Yep. Yes, he did.
That's that's all I'm gonna say on that for now. Charlie, we got to get to our 2025 predictions. We do this every year. We will, as always, come back and look at this at the end of the year and laugh at ourselves. Charlie, let's start with this. What's one major policy accomplishment, either good or bad, that you think is going to the Trump administration this year?
So just like one accomplishment that you think he's gonna do?
Yeah.
I think he's gonna end the war in Ukraine by completely giving up on Ukraine.
Okay. I think that he is actually going to implement these tariffs. That's my prediction there. Shirley, what's Elon Musk's status in government going to be at the end of the year? Is he still going to be there?
I think so.
I don't, because I think Trump's going to get fed up enough with him. Right, there's that much ego. Those conflicting egos can only last so long. Reports are Trump's already kind of getting annoyed at Elon. I don't think Elon is long for a role in the White House. Shirley, what's the stock market going to be at the end of the year relative to what it is now? Up, down, or up?
I think it's going to go down initially. And I think it's going to go down initially in the first part of the season, in the year. Sorry, we'll see what happens with the way that Trump implements some of his economic plans. But I do think the stock market is going to end up a little bit. It's currently sitting right now, as of us recording this, at 42,707. I think it's going to end the year of 2025 up slightly, not by much.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I predicted that Trump would enact his tariffs, right? If that does happen, that's going to be an economic catastrophe. And to me, that would suggest that the stock market would go down at least somewhat this year. So I think I'm going to go with that.
All right.
State of current wars going on in the world: Israel, Gaza, Russia, Ukraine, other ones that could potentially start. What do you think the state of the world militarily is going to be in next year?
I think, and it is my sincere hope that both of those wars will have ended by the end of the year. I do think that the war in Russia, in between Russia and Ukraine, will probably be over by the end of the year. As for the situation in the Middle East, I really don't know, but I do think that one by the end of the year will also likely be over.
Yeah, I don't know if I can say either will be over because I don't. Well, first of all, with the Middle East, I don't know what this conflict will look like.
Yeah, and we
I
don't
think
know what over means, do we?
Yeah, I don't. I think neither is going to look the way it does, right? I think we might be at a point where Ukraine doesn't need quite as much U.S. support to be able to continue. Now, if the U.S. decides to start siding with Putin, that's another story. But I mean, I I think that Ukraine will be in a worse spot a year from now than they are today. We'll put it that way. Charlie, let's get to some sports predictions. Super Bowl matchup and winner.
Lions over Bills.
You can't make me pick against the Chiefs. I'm sorry, guys. Chiefs over Lions.
All right.
World Series.
World Series. Oh, okay. Well, I know who I'm picking out of the National League.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, it's got to pick an AL team for them to run over.
Yeah.
So Soto's obviously gone. This is tough. My pick for the World Series is let's go LA over Cleveland.
Okay, Charlie, you remember how I said back in April that UConn the last couple years has kind of broken March Madness?
Yep.
You're not supposed to be able to run through it in the way that they have.
Well, the Dodgers broke baseball.
Yeah, exactly. The same thing is true in baseball. The postseason is supposed to kind of be a crapshoot. I think the Dodgers might, at this point, be good enough that that no longer is a thing. Uh, Give me the Dodgers to run through the postseason, annihilating, frankly, everyone in their path. I don't think there's a clear favorite out of the American League. I do not know what to make of it. Which I do. I might agree with you on Cleveland actually.
All right.
NBA Finals.
Colin, how about you go first on one of these?
Yeah, that's fine. All right. NBA. Unfortunately, I think the Thunder are make the finals. I can't pick them to win, guys. I'm sorry. I can't really. I don't. You know what? Maybe I'll pick Cleveland to win. You know what? I'm doing it. Sorry.
You're picking Cleveland over OKC?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Give me OKC over Cleveland.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Stanley Cup Finals, Charlie. We've joked about the Kraken the last couple years. What are we actually feeling this year?
Colin, again, I'm gonna have you go first on this one. I've gone first on
Yeah,
everyone
that's
else.
fair enough. To me, this could actually be the year that there's a threat from a Canadian team because there's a couple really good ones this year, but it's Canada, so they're not winning it. Give me the Capitals to beat the LA Kings.
All right, that's your pick.
Yep.
Kings have looked good. Edmonton's looked good. I think this might just be the year that Canada finally breaks through. Give me Edmonton over Washington.
Oh wow. Okay. So I mean, we're just ignoring the two Canadian teams that are at the top of their divisions.
Well, Colin, one of those teams is Toronto. Toronto?
Yeah,
So
the Leafs. No, the fine. New prediction. We're going for this one. How are the Maple Leafs going to be eliminated from the playoffs this year?
Well,
The answer is they're losing in Game 7 time to
yes.
Boston.
Yep.
That's the answer.
That is the answer. All right, let's move on.
I think we're at college football national champion. You do not have to give the team that loses the game who's the national champion in college football.
For like with the current 4 teams remaining?
Yeah.
Ohio State.
Yeah, it's Ohio State. NCAA men's basketball.
I mean, it's tough to pick against UConn again.
It is. With that being said, give me the team that's probably looked better than anyone else this year so far. Give me Auburn.
You're picking Auburn.
I'm picking Auburn.
You're picking Auburn. All right. Give me UConn.
Okay. And then women's basketball. We both looked like idiots picking against South Carolina last year. What are you thinking?
This one's a bit difficult for me. Let me give me a second to think about this. I mean, UCLA's looked really good. So is South Carolina.
Yeah.
It's tough to pick against South Carolina again, but UCLA's look good. USC's look good.
USC's looked really good. This one's
tough. But again, it's hard to pick against South Carolina. I think I'm gonna have to pick South Carolina.
Yeah, that's the problem for me is I'm not making mistake twice. If someone else beats them, great, hands up to them. You're not making me pick against the Gamecocks in women's basketball this year.
Why is one of the categories just called Aaron Rodgers?
Where's he gonna be next year?
He's going to be on his couch.
I
think he's gonna retire.
You think he's gonna retire? I'm gonna disagree. I think he's gonna be a Jet again. Just
I thought you were gonna say he was gonna go to Minnesota.
No. I think that the Jets are stupid enough that they're gonna bring him back. Final prediction, Charlie. It's not in the script. Where do you think you're going to be going to college next year?
Oh man, Colin, you're going first on this one.
Okay. Where do I think I'm going? This is not. I will say I've applied to this place. I really like this place. I will not comment on whether it is my top choice or not. And I don't think that there's a more than 50% chance. I think I'm going to go to the University of Washington. I don't know. We'll see where I am in 9.
All right. So based on where I'm applying, the chances of getting in, the places I really like, I think that I'm going to end up going to Hofstra University.
That's a fun one. All right.
All right. I think that'll do it.
We will see. Big year for us at the podcast, for us personally. That being said, that's going to close out our season premiere of C&C Talks. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe. Episodes coming out weekly wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at CC Talks Podcast. Follow Charlie at CC Talks Charlie. I am at Colin A. Becker. Morris is at Morris in Life. Zach is at Z Simonson. Discord server, cctalks.com/Discord. We'd love to chat with you there. Our website, cctalks.com, is know about the show. All this information and more is in the description. But for now, for our producer Morris and our production designer Zach, I'm Colin.
I'm Charlie. I'll see you next week.